and as swiftly as possible. For many of us, this is a pattern that never fitted. Since childhood, the green places have called us the loudest, and although we did the urban thing to burst from the closet, the lure of the rural soon overwhelmed the anonymity of the city. It didn't even feel like a choice, but something intrinsic that would have been dangerous to resist, like the act of coming out itself. So it was for George Walton and Reg Mickish, an elegant couple of demobbed Londoners who fell in love in the post-war ruins and moved to Bournemouth. In 1972, just 5 years after the decriminalisation of homosexuality, they upped sticks to the sticks, a tiny Welsh-speaking village in the hills of Montgomeryshire, mid-Wales. They remained in the area until their deaths 5 weeks apart in 2011, aged 94 and 84, respectively. Although the search for the queer rural is more mainstream today, there was no well-grooved path to follow in 1972. They bought an old village pub near Machynlleth and spent a year knocking it into shape as a guest house. According to their visitor's book, the first guest, C.W. Brooke, brackets Mr., stayed in October 1973 and found that he enjoyed every moment with good company and excellent service. 3 years later, they relocated to a more solitary property and then returned to the original area in 1980, setting up the B&B in its third and final incarnation at Rhw Goch, the Red Hill, an 18th century farmhouse on a quiet lane with no immediate neighbours. I understood the unconventional urge that had propelled them here, for my leap into the rural Welsh unknown had also been far from textbook. Sharing the same Worcestershire childhood horizon as poet A. E. Housman, I was equally bewitched by its blue-remembered hills, the slumbering giants of the borderlands and the mountains beyond. I seized every opportunity to visit Wales and ached to live there. In my 20s, I bagged a dream commission of writing the inaugural Rough Guide to Wales, spending months touring the country with a hire car, a tent, and an insatiable itch. No mere job. This was deep research for a new life. That, though, seemed to depend on finding the man to share it with, and he was proving highly elusive. Tired, well, in truth, bored of waiting for him, I jumped alone, aged 33, with almost no work and just my dog Patsy for company. The moment I knew that it was happening came during a Snowdonia holiday in the first months of the new millennium. A switch quietly flicked in my head, and I was on my way. I rushed back to Birmingham, gave notice on my house, and began hunting for a place in the West. Though the budget stretched only as far as a granny flat a few miles north of Aberystwyth, a home so diminutive that Patsy and I had to take turns moving around it, nothing could dent my excitement at finally being a resident of rural Wales. From decision to relocation had taken 8 weeks. Even in that short time, I had acquaintances from all corners of my life lining up to tell me that I was making a dreadful mistake. As a gobby, gay brummie, they said, the best I could hope for in Llan Nowhere was to be ignored and to die a lonely old queen. At worst, they thundered, I'd be hanged like a hillbilly Mussolini from the nearest lamppost. Without knowing quite why, I was sure they were wrong. On my travels in Wales, even out into its wildest corners, I'd often sniffed a queer cunning in the air. A quiet tolerance, too. Not from the tick list of minorities fast becoming the political imperative of the day, but something softer and deeper, embedded in ancient rock. On moving, there was no shortage of comradeship, and before long, my man duly turned up in the shape of Peredur, or Preds, the youngest son of a local hill farm. If the naysayers were so vehement in their condemnation of my move, what must Reg and George's family and friends have had to say in the early 1970s? However portentous the warnings, they would have made little difference to George. He would have lost no sleep over the reception they might get in Wales. He approached their coupledom with the same well-mannered confidence that underpinned